Oh, dear friends, it's a premiere for me. But can I start saying my extreme pleasure to be here this morning in front of all of you, coming from the entire world to this very unique place, Reykjavik, Iceland, Arctic Circle, and by trying to answer three questions, which are, in a certain way, the main cogito for the relation between France and Arctic. First, what is France's past and present relationship to the Arctic? It's always easier to ask the question and to answer in the same way. French people have really had a strong interest for Arctic region for several centuries. Very early, indeed, French travelers headed to northern Scandinavia, and one of the first map of Siberia was drawn a long time ago in 16th century by a French priest. And last week, being at the Royal Danish Library in Copenhagen, I was presented with a book published in 1674 in Paris and entitled Relations du Groenland, which demonstrated how appealing Arctic regions already were to my countrymen. Here in Reykjavik, I can't help recalling that one of our most famous polar explorer, Jean-Baptiste Charcot, died just off this coast in Berganès in 1936 when his ship Pourquoi Pas was wrecked. This tragic event is still remembered and with much emotion each time I visit Reykjavik. To skip to France's present relationship to the Arctic, let me note that the Commandant Charcot is now the name of a brand new cruise ship belonging to Ponant Company, which just made her first journey 1 month ago and thus became the first French ship to reach North Pole. The ship has been designed to accommodate both a limited number of tourists and scientific research. And older generation, and I'm from the old generation, in France were fascinated by the books, conference drawings, and movies brought home by other passionate polar explorers such as Paul-Émile Victor or Jean Mallory. They paved the way for a long-standing tradition of Arctic research by French individuals as well as institutions. As a matter of fact, France is mainly present in the Arctic through its scientists conducting research in almost every Arctic country. And if I have to sum up our Arctic policy in 3 words, it will be science, science, and science again. Arctic science ministerial meetings have now been recognized as the main gathering for Arctic scientists for all fields. And organizing ASM4 during the Russian presidency of the Arctic Council at the beginning of 2023 means a lot for my country, whose presence in the Arctic is primarily based on its scientists. We wish to see this opportunity to improve cooperative scientific efforts in the Arctic, taking into account the issues arising due to climate change and that are impacting the quality of life and well-being of the people of the North. Today, indeed, French public opinion, as everywhere probably, feels strongly concerned by the current and future state of the Arctic. Whether it regards preserving its environment, assessing and mitigating the threats it is facing, or looking for ways to ensure its sustainable development, there is a strong concern and involvement in our civil society, echoed by members of our parliament and national media. Second question, what does Arctic policy mean for a non-Arctic country? Although France has developed this dense and wide interest for the Arctic, it is not an Arctic country and never claimed to become one, not even a quasi-Arctic country, which seems to me a nonsensical category. We fully respect the Arctic countries' sovereignty and prior responsibility in dealing with Arctic matters. But at the same time, we refuse to ignore that there is a joint responsibility in dealing with this part of the world region when it comes to activities in other regions impacting the Arctic. This is obviously the case with climate issues, but there is also a need for increased cooperation in the fields of sustainable development and environmental protection. This approach was already the rationale for our application to the Arctic Council as an observer, state more than 20 years ago. It was later developed by my predecessor, our first ambassador at large for the poles and former Prime Minister Michel Rocard, whose last work in 2016 was the publication of our national roadmap for the Arctic. And I really wanted to pay here in Reykjavik a special tribute to this morning to Rocard, who was President, your guest here at the Arctic Circle. Thank you. We are now in the process in France of drafting our first comprehensive national polar strategy covering both the Arctic and the Antarctic, since our polar expertise has always been twofold. In a month's time, I will present it to the President Emmanuel Macron. Being a non-Arctic country means also that we develop and maintain close ties with each of the Arctic countries you are. This applies primarily to academic exchanges and research, but also to diplomatic, economic, and human ties. We do care, as every one of you, about the livelihood of the Arctic inhabitants, including indigenous people. Further, last question, what does it imply for France as a EU member state? From a French perspective, being a EU member state means a lot to our Arctic policy, dear Michael. First, we pay a special attention to the situation and possible concerns of other EU countries, which are Arctic countries. Sweden published a new national strategy less than a year ago, and so did Finland in June this year. Both have been thoroughly read and studied in France and duly taken in account. In the same spirit, we are closely working with Denmark and with the government of Greenland. Then, dear Michael, I've read with great attention, but no surprise, our EU new Arctic strategy. And I really appreciate the choice and the meaning of each adjective in the title of your communication. A stronger EU engagement for a peaceful, sustainable, and prosperous Arctic. You know that France contributed to its preparation, and we already took note of the outcome of the public consultation, which was marvelous, conducted a few months ago. In that process, all stakeholders, both citizens, civil society, public, private, and academic authorities clearly express their huge expectation on Arctic. They want us, as Europeans, to actively take care of the Arctic as far as safeguarding the environment and mitigating climate change are concerned. There is an equally important wish to ensure a sustainable development in and around the Arctic. And finally, we are encouraged to strengthen international cooperation. Some of these endeavors belong to the EU as a community and some to its member states, but we see no divergence in the level of orientation of French Arctic policy in that context. As a European, as a French citizen, I feel extremely at ease with this increased engagement in and around the Arctic region, and France in this way will extend its cooperation with all partners and stakeholders. France's connection to Iceland is a very old one, based for centuries on sailors and fishermen journeys. It's now relying on our shared economic, scientific, and cultural interests in the north. Those are to be further developed during the coming years, whether on a bilateral basis or through EU. France is going to chair the Council next January for the 6 months coming. The now very well-established Arctic Circle is really a remarkable achievement, and it is wonderful to be able to meet again in Reykjavik despite these constraints imposed by the COVID. So I deeply thank Olafur Ragnar Grimson. What you have done, President, with the Arctic Circle is not only important for your country, I know it's important for the country, not only for Arctic region, but for the entire world. And I want to thank you very deeply in the name of my predecessor, Michel Rocard, also. So I promise you, President, this morning, my colleague, Sophie Laszlo, French ambassador to Iceland, and myself will do our best to bring the French President, Emmanuel Macron, to the next edition of the Arctic Center. You already got, I think, the date, middle of October. So thank you very much, and long life to Arctic, to science, and to peace.